Hi, this is Lisa Kleitch, and this is a discussion of intervals as part of the elements of music. In music, the distance between pitches is described as an interval. Now, in an earlier presentation, I mentioned octave. Two pitches that have a sound vibration relationship that is either doubled or halved. And we call that interval, the distance, an octave because octaves are 8 notes apart in either a major or minor scale, hence the Latin root oct for 8. And let me show you that here on the keyboard. You'll see in the black keys, we have a pattern of 2 black keys and 3 black keys. If you look at the 2 black keys on the left, the lowest one, and then you look at the 2 on the right, and again the lowest of that set, the distance between those 2 notes is described as an octave. And any of the notes that fall within the same pattern, the white key between the 2 black keys, up here again, that's an octave. A half step, which is the smallest defined interval in Western music, is the distance between the black key and a white key, or a white key and a black key, or even when there's no black key between 2 white keys. That's also a half step. So on the keyboard, they are adjacent keys. Now, there is a highly specialized language that musicians learn to describe all the different intervals that there are, and we are not going to go into that. Instead, we're going to give you some layman terms that might make sense to just about anybody when discussing intervals. So one of the easiest things to hear is that notes repeat. And when you look at it on sheet music, you can see here that these 3 notes are all on the same line of the staff, the lines and spaces that we read music on, all on the same line. So we would say that those repeat. And here again, where these are all on the same space, we would say that those intervals repeat as well. So take a look at this. You've heard this music before. Do you know what it is? Think about it. Okay. Ba 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 ba, ba 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 ba. It's the opening to Beethoven's Fifth. And repeated notes then follow with small intervals make music very catchy. So when notes aren't repeating, but they're very close to one another, those smallish intervals, we can say that they're steps apart, or that the music moves in stepwise motion. Just like, you're going up steps one after the other. Or if you're in a hurry, you might skip a step in between and get up the stairs a little bit bigger leaps. But generally, you're not going to skip 2 steps at a time. That's a certain amount of athleticism and coordination required to do that. So you've heard this music before in this course. Here's an example of lots of repeats and small steps, and it makes for a very catchy tune.
Because I'm all about that bass, no trouble. I'm all about that bass, no trouble. I'm all about that bass, no trouble. I'm all about that bass.
Okay, very cute parody there. So what do small steps look like? Well, one of the things that you can pull up lots of music on the internet in an image search and take a look at it. And so here you can see the repeats like we had in Beethoven's Fifth, and that just makes a small step down, space to space, and repeats again, and then goes back up to where it originally started, and things are pretty close. When you look at the vertical distance between these notes, it's not very big. And so that's the biggest indicator that you either have the repeats where they're all at the same vertical height, or the distance is very small vertically. And you can have leaps where notes are farther apart, that bounding up the stairs more than a step in between, like really huge athleticism, Jerry from the cartoon Tom and Jerry is going to kick off our discussion on leaps, and nothing like a cartoon to show you what it looks like. Okay, we lose the cartoon, but again, you can see just all the vertical distance between these notes. That's a good indication we've got leaps going on. Okay, I'm going to leave you here with this. You're welcome to look at this on the playlist and listen to it, giving more of an idea of what lots of leaps look like. In singing, you have these oftentimes soaring leaps where the singer really connects the two notes even though it's a wide space. Listen to this when the male singer here starts singing Maria. He's going to be making a very big leap, just shy of an octave.
Maria, Maria, Maria,
Wait for it. Here it comes.
Maria, I've just met a girl named Maria, and suddenly that name will never be the same to me. Maria, I've just kissed a girl named Maria, and suddenly I've found how wonderful a sound can be. Maria.
Okay. Now, because he's a really trained singer, it might not at first glance seem as big a leap as it truly is. So here's one of my tips for figuring out if it's a big leap. Try singing it yourself. Okay? So I sing all the time, but I'm not really a highly trained singer. So if I sing it, it sounds like Maria. Ooh, that's a pretty big leap. Yeah. It doesn't flow easily. I have to kind of like switch registers in my voice. It's hard to negotiate. So give that a try, and that's a really good indication that you've got a big soaring leap. Here's another example. She's going to sing this every time you hear the words "My Bonnie." And then you're also going to hear it in kind of almost a sine sound with the orchestration where it's going to be doing some downward leaps. There was that one, this downward leap. Another one. Another downward leap there.
My Bonnie lies over the ocean. My Bonnie lies over the sea.
So every time she sings "My Bonnie," it's a big leap.
My Bonnie lies over the ocean. Oh, bring back my Bonnie to me.
So again, I invite you to test it out for yourself. My Bonnie lies over. It's not the easiest interval to negotiate. So, and particularly to get the notes to sound in the same kind of quality. So that's a really good indication that you've got a big leap. So lots of leaps. It can be very disjointed. Not so singable, but it can mean some really amazing music. Now, generally, it's not going to be, so catchy. You're not going to be singing it, but here's an example of just like some awesome, dramatic leaps all over the place. Not exclusive, but listen for them. Yeah, big leap. That was kind of stepwise moving down. Those are pretty big leaps there. Woohoo! Big leap to repeats. Whoa. We're going to listen to it again. Repeats. Lots of leaps in our high range. Oh, it's just amazing. Just amazing. Okay, so let's go kind of over a summary of what can be included in discussion of the intervals. Repeats. You can use the real music terminology of octaves and half steps. But then when it's, notes are close to one another, you can talk about them as steps or stepwise motion. And then when you've got leaps, you can have soaring ones that are really connected, or gigantic leaps, dramatic leaps. Those can all be described. Now, you're not going to find music that's generally going to have just one type of interval in it. It's going to have variety, but you can highlight some sections, like talking about the opening of Beethoven's Fifth, which has repeated notes with a small step. And so that's one way that you can use layman's terms to discuss intervals. Okay, that's